Welcome back, Exes and T fans. Hey guys, it's Danny here. I'm really excited to be back with you guys. I know it's been a hot minute since I've been here. I went on vacation, and honestly, life is just kind of crazy right now, but it's always crazy. So I just appreciate everybody who has been so supportive and understanding that if I have to reschedule something or if I'm kind of disappearing, everyone has just been so understanding and so nice, and I absolutely love that. Um, a lot has happened and one of the biggest things that has been kind of weighing on me recently is why do we do this? Why is it that we're coming on here and talking about our truths? Why are we continuing to spread a message that to us is so important, but I guess to the outside world, it seems different, right? So recently, I had a person come to me and tell me how ridiculous it is that I have been open about the abuse that I experienced from my mother. And this person seems to think that I need to keep this offline. I don't have a right to speak about it, that their experience is different from mine and I don't have a right to speak. Like their experience is the only experience, you know? And it really ties back into everything that we talk about here. We talk about domestic violence, we talk about abuse, we talk about anti MLM. Like all of these things are all connected in one way or another, are very, very similar. Being in a cult was very similar to being in an abusive relationship, which was very, very similar to the way I was raised, right? So it's so infuriating when someone sits there and they think that they can tell you your story. Like, I'll never understand that. But it really led me to thinking, why is it so important that we continue doing this? And it's because it's sparking a conversation and we are creating change little by little. Okay. So oftentimes I'll see people claim that we are acting like victims, and the same person who came at me said those words to me, right? And it's infuriating because if they don't have the same experience, they don't get it. And that's okay. But you don't have a right to tell myself or anybody else that we're not allowed to speak on this. And honestly, it's frustrating when people try to come on and try to say anything that they can to discredit anything that we're saying. And thankfully, I don't have a lot of hate comments in my comment section, thankfully, when it comes to speaking about Amway or Worldwide, Brit Worldwide, URA, LTD. Thankfully, I don't. I look forward to the day that it happens, though. But my audience isn't big enough. But where I do face the biggest backlash is people in my personal life that I happen to know who have they think they have the right to tell me what I can and can't say. And it led me to something as well that I was told, when you have a situation of abuse, you have a perpetrator. And that's a very uncomfortable conversation that nobody wants to talk about. It's not a common thing for people to come on and say, oh, you know what? I am a survivor of abuse. Okay. Now, whether this person who came at me or every other person who has come at me about this topic, it doesn't matter what they say. I'm not going to stop talking about it. And I'm certainly not going to change any of the decisions that I have made. Okay. I do not have a relationship with my mother. We are no contact. And quite frankly, I do not see that changing. And I will deliberately go out of my way to make sure that does not change. Okay. The amount of positive that has come into our lives since cutting that level of stress has been incredible. Okay. And I don't want to go too in depth. If you don't know my story already, I was raised by a narcissistic mother who just continues to not put her own mental health first, which in turn is very abusive and hurtful to other people, including myself and my children. If you're new here, hi, I'm Danny, and I do have two neurodivergent children. And if you know anything about neurodivergence as a whole, let alone in children, you understand that you can't just have somebody who is unpredictable and explosive around children who quite literally need consistency. They need the exact same thing every single day. They need patience. Okay. Like, trust me, it's hard sometimes, especially somebody who was raised in a very explosive environment, to have that level of change and patience. But dear God, I have worked so hard, so fucking hard to make sure that I am not the same way that my mother was to me. And especially hard because my kids are neurodivergent. And there's a lot of things that happen because they're kids, whether they're neurodivergent or not. Kids are unpredictable, right? Kid will say things that will get under your skin, or they might do something. And it's my job or any adult's job to be the adult in the situation and, understand that they're a child, right? They're children. They are whatever age they're at. There's a reason why this is happening, and it's better to find the root of the problem through talking than through just screaming at them. And that is why it is so important for me to continue speaking up about this. Okay. People sat back and watched as I experienced abuse from my mother. Some of these people enabled it. Some of these people still to this day blame me. And that's wild to me. Okay. Nobody once ever asked me when I was a kid, "Are you okay?" Nobody. No adult in my life said, "Are you okay? Are things okay at home? Why are you acting out this way?" And I kind of wish they would have. Not that it was anybody else's responsibility to do so, but I really do wish that that was the case. And sadly, it wasn't. But we still live in a society where there's this you have to respect your elders mentality. And let me tell you, that is the most bullshit thing. And I do not respect that. If you are older than me and you don't respect me, you don't fucking deserve my respect. You're not going to get it. I do not care who you are. If Jesus Christ came down and was spouting the same abuse to me, fuck off, Jesus. Sorry. I don't care who you are. We all know that Jesus would not do that. Okay. But I just wanted to bring up a really extreme example of I don't care where in the hierarchy these people stand. It doesn't matter to me. If I am not being respected by an adult, and of course it's different like with a boss, and if there's a time and place, and of course I understand the nuance. However, I'm talking about this specific situation where like maybe an aunt or an uncle, somebody who is older, thinks that they deserve a level of respect that they really don't. um and so when I was thinking about this whole conversation of Jesus, like, why is it that these people who did not live my life seem to think that they can speak on it? And it really started to make me think about some of the things that I have read online, or heard in board plans at a worldwide board plan, where they're blaming people like me, like the other people that we've had here. Like Heroes to Villains, Life After MLM podcast, the MLM Kid, Unplugged, the various people and guests that I've had, right? That we're just victims and we could not make it work, so somehow that makes us the bad people. And these people are so brainwashed into this mentality that they genuinely think that that is the only thought process they're allowed to have. And I think it is so important that we keep talking about these topics that make other people uncomfortable. If somebody comes at me and they get mad, I know I'm doing something right because I know that I am speaking on something that makes a difference. And if anybody's going to get mad about that, that's their business. That's not mine. Okay. I'm not out here blatantly saying this is a horrible person. Like I don't think my mom is a good person personally, but I'm not out here like verbally attacking her. I'm speaking on my truth and my personal experience. Similar to when we talk about Worldwide or Amway or the various tools businesses in our previous upline. I don't ever see anybody, any of the guests that I've had, or any of the pages that I follow, nobody is like aggressively, like verbally abusing their previous upline. They're speaking their truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes it is a brutal reality to say that these tools organizations, they do have this culture that does represent some really nasty things: racism, homophobia, marital rape. That God, that's one that I cannot get over. The amount of times that I have heard from women that they were told that they felt obligated to be intimate with their spouses was beyond me. I mean, Hope brought us the book, right? Love and Respect. That book alone is horrible and toxic. And I would actually at some point love to go deeper into some of the other books that they had us read. But that one in particular really just, that was the nail in the coffin for me that this organization, in my opinion, is not good. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and criticize these people and say, so and so is this horrible person. Like, I'm not going to throw slander out there. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to like bring up something about them, that is just to be mean. I'm not that kind of person and I'm not trying to be, right? And no one out here who's talking about this is trying to be that way. And in my opinion, I think that somebody who brings themselves into a situation, they're the ones almost making themselves victims, in my opinion. And now I think that everybody's allowed to have a conversation, but I think that when somebody who's totally out of the situation, like they have nothing to do with it, and then they take it upon themselves to like come into the situation and think that they can say something about it, like, that doesn't I don't understand that. I don't. Maybe they think that they're protecting the person. Maybe they think that they're, like, gonna gain some, like, brownie points with that person, that they're in my situation could be, I don't know what their goal is to be, maybe the favorite person that my mom has. Like, I don't care. I spent a lot of my life wishing and praying that my mom would love me the way that a mother should love a daughter. And I'm at the point where I don't care anymore. I am 30 years old. That shit is not changing. Okay. And I don't expect it to change. And at this point, I don't care. I do not want it to change. I am just happy living my life the way that it's going. And I'm okay with that. Okay. And I have to say, if my dad endorses my decisions, then I know I'm making the right one. Because if I know that there's one person who's going to hold me accountable to all of my decisions, it is my dad. My dad will be the first person to tell me that I'm wrong. He will be the first person to look at the situation and say, no, you are wrong here. But if he thinks I'm right in a situation or he, in any way agrees with it, oh, I know I'm right. Trust me. There's no bigger critic other than myself than my dad. And I'm always grateful for that because it really creates this level of self reflection that some people just do not have because they've never been held accountable. That's another thing. Holy shit. Accountability. That is a huge reason why we should not shut up about this. These people, they really think that they're bulletproof. They're not. Okay. All of the leaders that we had in worldwide platinums and above, listen, I've had a couple of people try to tell me that, oh, the platinums are innocent. Respectfully, the person who told me that was the guy that the girls were talking about. And my guy, I still haven't seen an apology from you. So I don't know what's up, but if you're still out there pretending to be an ally, don't. Okay, you're hurting people more than you're helping people. But anyways, so my point is that platinums and above, they're getting paid right at a Q12 level and above. As long as they maintain that, they're getting paid on the tools, you guys. And none of this was told to us. Where's that accountability? Where are they coming and saying, you know what, we're really sorry, we should have disclosed this information, right? They're continuing to lie. And I have a variety of people, okay, a variety of people, from people who just left worldwide or any of the various tools businesses, or people who have left a long time ago and wanted to come and speak to me about it now. Like, I've had all walks of life come here. And the common denominator is we all left because there was a level of deception. But people have different views, right? We have people who have left recently who maybe they do still think their upline could be good people. I went through that. I feel like a lot of people did. But then we have people who left recently that maybe like something had happened bad enough for them to be like, no, fuck those people. And it happens. Every opinion is okay, if I'm being honest. I would love for somebody who is pro these organizations to come on here and have a conversation with me. If you want to be out here and criticizing any of us in the community who are speaking out against worldwide or any of the different Amway tools businesses, I welcome you. Come here. Let's have a conversation. Okay. Because the thing is you have people like the club owner who are like, oh, you'll believe Sexy Kitten 69 on Reddit, but I'm here giving you my face. And some of you know where I live. Like, of course who are you going to trust? Okay. Hi, my name is Danny. And here's my face. I'm giving it to you guys. I'm telling you my name. I'm offering you a place to come and have a conversation about what it is that I'm missing. What are you seeing that I'm missing? Okay. Because let me tell you, when I have 30 or 40 people coming and speaking about their negative experiences with these organizations, I don't know. At some point, you start to realize that, I don't know, maybe we're all telling the truth. I mean, we can't all be lying, right? I don't think that anybody who has come to my podcast and has come out and spoken, I don't think anybody's lying about anything. I really, really don't. And people can say, oh, well, they want attention. Most people come on here anonymously. Very few people have come on here and even tagged themselves in the posts or like have said who they are. Okay. People just want a place to fucking talk. And myself or all the other platforms are giving people a voice. And whether it's them creating content, like I love Heroes to Villains. Jenna and Stefan are awesome. I loved having the opportunity to talk to them and them having content that just makes sense. I love their little skits videos. I love the way that they're talking, and I love the way that they are bringing attention to a topic that is so serious. And then we have, like Life After MLM. She is not just talking about Amway. She talks a lot about different MLMs and how negatively that they're impacting people. She also gives people a voice and a platform. And then you have people like TJ with Unplugged. He's just out here trying to tell people, like, dude, LTD's fucked up in his opinion, in all of our opinion, really. Like, I endorse what he has to say when it comes to LTD and how negatively he was treated there and the things that he saw behind the scenes and the things that he's still seeing, y'all. Like, I'm just saying, all of these people that you're seeing were speaking because we were at one point silenced and we know the truth. They want to sit there and say that they're the ones who know the truth, right? But it's like, if your information is so limited and it is all controlled by your leadership, how are you the one who was not brainwashed? Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it. If you are in the organization and for some reason you see any of us talking and you don't want to, you don't want to agree with us, fine, but come and have a conversation with me. I'll talk to you. I want to know, what the hell is it that I'm missing? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I just can't stop thinking about how important it is for us to continue talking about this stuff, because if we don't, they win. Then all of the things that we went through were for nothing. Okay, I'm not the only person who had an abusive mother. And really, I think Jeanette McCurdy coming out with her book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, that was so pivotal in my healing journey because it made it okay to talk about it. You have somebody on a platform like Jeanette McCurdy saying, my mom was abusive to me. It was unbelievable because growing up, I felt like I was alone. I didn't realize just how many people actually dealt with the same things. People that I know personally, people who I know personally that are also no contact with their parents. And you know, the isolation that comes behind it as well. I don't think people realize just how hard it is to leave these situations, whether it's an abusive parent, an abusive significant other, or a cult. Okay. We felt a sense of community with these people. Okay. It was hard for a lot of us to take a step away from worldwide because those were the people we wanted to stay with forever. Those were our best friends. We were going to travel the beaches of the world together. Right. And taking a step away meant isolation. And I know for me, I was like so isolated when I left because that was my entire life. I mean, I had distanced myself from most of the friends that I'd had at their urging. And I gave my life to this business that just took $30,000 and years of my time. Thankfully, my kid doesn't really remember it. I will always be grateful for that. I'll still forever, and I'll say this every time, I have the mom guilt of like putting him through that. And it makes me wonder, like, how are these Diamonds kids going to end up? I think the anti MLM kid is amazing because she is the child of Amway Diamonds. And she grew up in Amway. Like, she's out here being anti Amway and she was raised in it. She has seen it her entire life. Okay. Why is it that it goes against everything that she knows to come out and talk about it? That shit is uncomfortable for us. Do you know how long it took me to be like, okay, I need to come out and talk about this. And I was nervous as all hell. And, thankfully at the time I had somebody by my side who had a willingness to talk with me. Now that person isn't here anymore, but, at the end of the day, that person is a survivor as well. And I will always endorse them as a survivor. Like, it doesn't matter, if they made, the choice to go a different direction or not. I do think survivors should stick together, and I will never ever diminish somebody as a survivor, regardless of how our relationship ended, or I don't want to say ended so much as like we just made different decisions. But the point is that I finally was brave enough to come out and talk about it, and now I'm really, really grateful that I have because there's something healing about coming here, having an audience to listen. I love the idea of therapy. Therapy is fantastic. And I love it because you have somebody to confide in who is an outside source, who is a professional who can, talk you through things and ask questions that maybe you didn't think to ask. Like, we talk heavily about mental health here and are huge advocates for therapy. There is something different though, and it hits different when you're talking to people who get it, people who also left a cult. people who left DV relationships, and people who have narcissistic parents. Okay. There is something about the community that we've cultivated here that is so fucking healing. And I could not be any more grateful for the people that I have come in contact with through this podcast. Literally every single person that I've come in contact with has been some of the nicest people I have ever met. People who still talk to me and ask me how I'm doing. People who tell me it's okay. It's okay. Like you're totally fine. Like it's okay. Like I was on a Zoom call with Nandi actually when I got this crazy call from the person who was like, "Hey, you need to quit talking about, your mom, blah 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 blah." And like she was so understanding. So Nandi, shout out. Thank you so much for your understanding and the craziness of that situation. But I just feel so much support here. And no matter what the love bombing came from these organizations or the abusers, it does not it does not come close to the authenticity that is here with survivors. Okay? I tell everybody, your biggest supporters will be people who left MLMs and people who are here supporting survivors. And I think that is just so important for us to keep doing. If I sat back and I was like, this person called me and was like going off on me about talking to my mom, let's say I did take that personally, because before I would have, I had another person do the same shit. And I was like, dear God, what the hell is wrong with this person? And part of me has to have a little bit of empathy because they don't know what they don't know. But when they were made aware and the way that they handled it, I was like, you're not a person I want a part of my life, anyways. Because if you're going to be an abuser apologist, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't care if you're family. I don't care if you've been a friend forever. I could fucking care less. Okay. One thing I do not support is people who apologize for abusers, people who try to make excuses, people who condone the behavior, blame the survivor, or ignore it altogether. And that is unfortunately what a lot of people do. And I know sometimes it can be hard. Like, what can we do to support our friends who are surviving actively? I don't really like to say the word victim. I know it's a term and I know it's a thing. Like I am a victim of domestic abuse, but I prefer to say I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I am a survivor of a narcissistic parent. I am a survivor of a cult. During those times, I was quite literally surviving, doing what I felt I needed to do to survive. And some of those things were not great actions. I will totally admit it. I was not a great kid. I mean, I did not have by any means the best role model to teach me how to handle my emotions. And as an adult, I quite literally had to start from zero to understand how I would process my emotions, not the way that it was taught to me with these very large reactions. I don't have those large reactions all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where sometimes I'm so triggered and I do have those moments where I regress a little bit, but I love looking at who I am now. Sometimes I struggle and I feel bad, right? But that's insecurity that was instilled in me by these abusive relationships, right? Like, and I say this all the time. There's so much guilt that I have for not posting, not coming on and being as active in the community as I would love to be. But I also have to remember I have two neurodivergent kids. If you don't have kids on the spectrum and you don't know what that life looks like, hey, I get it. It's I don't even know how to explain it, but I mean, my children will always have something that they will struggle with. And that is where my empathy lies. Like, sure, our life right now looks different, but it's because we are creating, a safe space for them to be able to grow into themselves and wanting to be able to give them what they need. And sometimes that means my 100% of my attention just to make sure they're safe, to make sure they're not eloping, to make sure that their emotions are okay. And that's okay. That's okay. When I'm in a really kind of dark space, I think like, damn, I could be doing that, but I'm not right now. But then I have to remember, okay, well, why am I not doing that? Well, I pulled out my laptop and my child was like, I need you right now. And I have the privilege to be able to say, okay, I can step away from this and I can give them 100% of my attention. And the irony of that is that comes from leaving these abusive situations. Every single one of these abusive situations took time away from my children because of the energy I had to give it. Okay. So when I was still in contact with my narcissistic parents, there was a lot of energy and trauma that was continuously coming up because it's an abusive cycle. And how many times can you try to give the same person a chance when they're not getting help? Right? They're not going to therapy themselves. They're not trying to better themselves. They are making excuses because the people in their corner are telling them that they're fine. But those same people in their corner aren't actually doing shit for them. So one thing I do want to vent about really quick. So if y'all are listening, any of the people who want to bitch about me, like talking about the situation, none of those fucking people were there for my mother the way that I was. Nobody will ever do for her what I did for her. And I did it out of the kindness of my heart because I'm her child. But at some point, I have to learn that my mother is in her 60s and I am in my 30s now. I can't be taking care of my mom and two neurodivergent children. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. It's their turn. It's my turn. It's my turn to really look inward and say, what kind of mom do I want to be? Because I sure as hell don't want to be like that. And I sure as hell don't want to be like half of the moms that reside in my family, respectfully. But I do have some amazing, amazing moms too in my family that I look up to. I cannot thank the support system that I have enough. The people who have stood by me by this decision, the people who have understood how fucking hard it is to take a step back. I mean, shit, wouldn't it be nice to have a good relationship with my mom? Absolutely, it would be. You guys don't think I didn't cry for months because I was like, damn, like I really just wish I had a mom. But it was like, I don't have that though. Like the relationship that I want is not what I have. That is not my reality. So when I do need something from a parent, I do go to my dad because that is the relationship they have, or my stepmom. Like those are my parents, right? And the relationship that I want is, it doesn't matter what I want. That's not what it is. And I can't keep hurting myself and my kids, right? So if you're a bystander who continues to be so mad at me for speaking my truth, like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I'm not sorry for speaking out. I'm sorry that you don't understand. I'm sorry that there's no part of you that wants to come and have a conversation with me and ask me, why did this happen? Which also leads me to, when I was a part of Worldwide, dear God, they took away so much time from from my child. My oldest child at the time when I had actually like gone through the process and gotten my offer, that was 2016. So my oldest child would have been 4. And it's insane to me to look back and think about how much time was spent away from my child. I quite literally had to pay money to put somebody else in charge of my child. People that I barely knew. Now, don't get me wrong, I met some amazing people who I interviewed and they were childcare providers for my kid. And, those people will always have a positive place in my heart. But, at the end of the day, what was Worldwide telling us? Oh, well, you're paying the lowest bidder to take care of your children, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, I'm going to my 9 to 5 every day, right? Not only am I going my 9 to 5, I then have to spend fucking 8 to midnight. And it was the club owner speaking, it's fucking 8 to 2 in the morning away from my kid. That's literally all fucking day away from my child, or it's keeping my child out of the house because I haven't talked to somebody yet. It's putting ourselves, myself, my child at risk and in danger because I was tired all the time. I was not getting a sufficient amount of sleep. I was keeping him out late hours of the night, doing Postmates, just trying to fucking survive. And when we do talk about it, like, of course, he thinks of the positives, right? Like, he got free pizza or free food sometimes, or they would give him like free drinks or coloring things. And it was always positive. But when it comes to the motivation behind why I was doing it, I feel so much guilt. And the time and energy that took away from my family, even like, I really distanced myself from friends, from like this. If you guys haven't heard already, please go listen to my episode with my dad, because my dad he's a very soft spoken kind of person. My dad is not by any means loud and explosive like me, but he does talk and speak so much truth about what it was like being my dad when we were part of this association. Because my dad he won't call it a business, he calls it a toxic enterprise. And he's not wrong. That's exactly what it is. It's a toxic, dangerous enterprise that is taking advantage of people. And it really drove a wedge between me and my dad. These are strangers. I didn't fucking know these people. None of us did. I don't care who you are and who you thought you knew. You don't know them. And the more I talk to people and the more that I learn, the more that I recognize that we really didn't know them. I mean, just like kind of an example that, I think a surprising thing was learning that Brooke Duncan was married to a woman. Good for her. Her life is her business. But nobody in Worldwide knew that. And it's my personal speculation that I personally believe that that and her lifestyle as, being away from the business is the reason why her parents, I don't want to say excommunicated her, but maybe don't bring her up or talk about her as often. And I think that that's really sad. But it's because I saw that happen within my own life too. Like there was a heavy emphasis to distance yourself from people that you viewed as toxic, and they taught you what is toxic. And they would teach you that the people who have been there for you your entire lives who actually have your best interest, those are the people that you need to snip, snap, snip, snap, right? Like you had the club owner, or I already said his name, Brad Duncan, right? His snip, snap, snip, snap audio. We've all heard it if you were part of Worldwide, and I actually think other people did too, where he's talking about how he's going off on Julie's mom on the phone because she's really angry with Julie about how much time she's not spending with her or whatever. And it's like, that's her mom. That like, don't get me wrong. I think that there's toxic parents. I absolutely just had this conversation before. I talked about it. But there are not all parents are like that though. Like my dad is not a toxic parent. My dad is a good fucking person. I don't care what other people's, visions or opinions are of other people. That's not my business. My dad as a parent to me and my siblings is fantastic. Like I think me and my siblings are all very lucky to have the dad that we do. And they tried to break that relationship up. And I of course I'll never know, but I have a strong feeling that Julie's mom was not like my mom and that this organization taught her potentially, of course I don't know, this is all alleged, but it almost taught that mentality. And then they're like, oh well, our parents started to understand once we were making like big money, right? But what about the people who aren't making big money? What about the people who can't afford to have a mother suite, or what do they call that, mother-in-law suite? What about the people who can't afford that? What about the people who've been in the business for 10 years, still haven't gone platinum, and have no relationships anymore? What are you doing about these people? Okay. You're stealing time away from these people, from their families, from their children. You guys, we had very few and far between did we have any sort of incentives where our kids could come. And sure, I think that there were people who were around longer whose kids did get along with their uplines kids or their, crosslines kids or whatever. Um, but those were never anything more than superficial relationships. They're not real. And when I kind of go back to learning about the crown guy, Brad Duncan, his daughter, that's just an example of we did not know. And that's okay that we didn't know, but we have to be willing to accept that we didn't know. We knew these people for I knew my upline for 3 years and I can't tell you what their favorite color is. I can't tell you. I mean, I know what kind of music at least Craig liked, because we had a really fun conversation about it. There were some good times, but they were all a facade. None of it was real. I don't know these people. I wish I did. I feel like if Jenny and Craig left the business, I feel like I could have a really in-depth conversation with them and actually really like them as humans. But I'll never know that. When I found out who my sponsor, what do we call him, Robert, was behind the scenes, ooh, I will hate him for life. You do not abuse. Okay. You do not abuse and get away with it. And that's where I struggle with Jenny and Craig and the rest of my upline because all of them, they they swept it under the rug. That's some toxic ass shit. And let me tell you, there are families who do that too. We have had people sweep abuse under the rug in my family, hence my mother and me, let alone other situations that are not my business to talk about. Okay. Like that's the thing that happens in these really abusive spaces. They're like leeches. They're taking our energy and our resources. And then when we finally let go, what are we? We're depleted of everything. So not only are they stealing our time from our children and from our families, but they're taking our livelihoods away. And when it comes to a DV relationship, which is another topic that I really like to talk about here, as hard as it may be, it's so important to keep talking about it because when I was in a DV relationship, that shit took my energy from everything. I was not okay. Ever was I ever okay. And I think about how much my children, my mostly my oldest, because my youngest wasn't born yet, but I think about how much he suffered. And I think about all the energy that was sucked out of me and given to this horrible person that did not deserve it, right? And it's hurtful. It's so hurtful. You're losing time, very precious time. You have all these people who are like, well, you have one parent that, time is so short, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, my time is short too. So why do I have to sacrifice my happiness for theirs? I've given 30 years of my life, or you know what? I actually just stopped talking to her before I turned 30. So I gave 29 years of my life to this person. They had 29 years to fix it. And I'm sorry, 29 years is 29 too fucking many. Okay. And then I think about this person, this abuser, Kyle, who I was in a relationship with, that really he just stole so much from me. And I try my like I don't I would say I have come very, very far in my healing journey when it comes to that situation, right? It's not as fresh. I split from him just before I left Worldwide. And, it was really, really hard at first. And now I can talk about it and understand that I'm okay to feel the guilt that I have, but I'm also okay to forgive myself and know that there's a level of manipulation that comes because you don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to choose an abuser today. That's what I think I'm going to do. Similar to anybody who's a part of Worldwide. I know every single person I've talked to has explained the level of embarrassment that they have for having been a part of this organization. It's like, same thing with an abuser. You don't wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm going to join a cult," right? You ended up in a cult as a result of the manipulation. These people are very, very good at what they do. And there is a level of narcissism, I think, at the, I don't want to say the, well, yes, at the top, but that's trickling down, that's taught, right? So when it comes to Worldwide in the love bombing, I mean, a lot of us that I've talked to, they have good relationships with their sponsors, or for me, it's my sponsor's ex wife. Like, these were not bad people. They were just doing what they thought was right, similar to a lot of us when we were trying to sponsor people. That was us. That's what we were taught to do. But when we left, we understood that that's not really who we are. And we always really struggled morally with, is this right? Um, but these people, they don't, the people who can stay in an organization like this, they don't care. They do not care. Some way, shape, or form, they have convinced themselves. Now, whether it's brainwashing or their own narcissism or their own, whatever tendencies they may have, right? That's where I struggle because I personally don't think you can continue being so manipulative and be a good person. But similar to an abuser, right? The love bombing that they do and the level of abuse that they inflict, whether it is psychological or physical, I don't care. It's abuse. That shit sticks with you. Okay. Same with abuse that comes from a narcissistic parent. Okay. That shit sticks with you for life. And the thing that is so infuriating for me is the people who seem to think that they can have an opinion and their opinion is the only valid one. Like, I'm so sick of people saying, "Well, I've been through worse and I forgave." I don't care what you did. We're all different people. Like, my healing journey is different from somebody else's. Maybe somebody went through the exact same things and they have a great relationship with their parents today. That's great. I love that for them. But I don't want somebody who has that to come over and discredit me and my feelings and my decisions. I had somebody else do that to me too, where they're like, "Oh, my dad was an alcoholic and I always kicked myself for not talking to him and then he died and I hated myself." And it's like, I'm sorry that that happened to you. I'm very, very sorry. I think that your trauma is very valid. And I think whatever trauma you are experiencing as a result of that, that's all for you to handle. And I will never discredit that. However, you don't get to use that against me either. You don't get to use your trauma and say, "But I did it, but you so can you." Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's not okay with me. And the same thing goes for people who say, "Oh, well, I didn't have that experience in Worldwide. So what? So what, you didn't have that experience." And I'm okay with that. I think that there's a lot of people who maybe did have different experiences and maybe they do think differently. And I do just want to say that that's okay. But the people who are out there who have different opinions, who are criticizing us for speaking on this and devaluing what we have to say because they didn't have that same experience, is absolutely ridiculous. And it is such a harmful mentality to have. Because that's again the same thing that happens with these abusers. "Oh, well, I never predicted Kyle would be like that." Or, "I've never seen your mom be like that. What are you talking about? You were worse than she was." And it's like, which version of me are we talking about is worse? Because if you're looking at me from the ages of 10 to 16, actually, really 10 to 20, because I did not have my shit together really until now. But, I left one level of brainwashing for another. I really think that getting away from that brainwashing in Worldwide Like worldwide kind of took me away from that brainwashing, and in a way, and I always say this, that like I changed my views so drastically because I started to realize, what does Danny think? Not what does my mom think? What does my abuser think? What does And now it's like, well, I don't care what worldwide thinks. Like that's not my opinion. That's fine, whatever. And we can all coexist peacefully, right? But I look back and I think about my situations, each individual one that I'm talking about, right? The TV, the narcissistic parent, and the cult. And all of it comes down to, I am allowed to keep talking about this, and I'm going to keep talking about this. And I highly, highly encourage people to keep talking about it. Because at the end of the day, whether you had the same experience as me or any of the other guests that I've had or any of the other platforms who talk about it, we're out there reaching to the people who have had those experiences or potentially saving somebody from those experiences. I am always grateful for the few and far between messages that I get that's like, hey, can you tell me what this is? Somebody tried to talk to me. Or, hey, my friend was getting involved in this. Like, what can you tell me to do? And it kind of again brings you back to that question of like, how can you be supportive of people like me who are speaking out, or any of the various guests or people in your life or platforms, like whoever? How can you be supportive? Number one, do not discredit people by saying things like, oh, well, I didn't have that experience. Okay, don't. Let's not go there. I do not give a fuck. You can live in a household with the same parents and several siblings, and each child will have a difference of an opinion. They're all going to have three different sets of memories and experiences, and they're going to have three different opinions of their parents. That's just a fact. No person is going to live their life the exact same. Another thing that you can do is be supportive when people want to talk about it. It's hard enough for us to come forward and speak about these things, but when we do want to talk about it, listen to us. Okay, please, please, when somebody is willing to talk about it, listen. It's okay to ask questions. I mean, it's not okay to be like, well, then why did you stay? Let me tell you, that question is incredibly insulting. Don't fucking ask it. It's stupid. Because why would anybody stay in such a horrible place? Because they feel like that's the right thing. And maybe they've convinced themselves that it's not that bad, or they thought it's their fault. Or, nobody chooses to stay in abuse. You feel like you have to stay and you have to find ways to survive. Like a lot of us probably wanted to leave a lot sooner than we did. And we either didn't know how, we were scared, or we thought it was going to get better. Okay. So don't ask that question. But if you're curious, please ask. And I am definitely open for questions. If you're ever curious about any of these different circumstances that I've spoken about, whether it's narcissistic parents, or DV, or being a part of a cult, like please ask me. I'm open. And if I'm not comfortable answering a question, I'll tell you. There's very few that I'm not willing to answer, because these experiences are they're very unique. It's kind of a niche topic to talk about being in a cult, because either some people don't recognize that they were part of one, or they've never been a part of one. And whew, cheers to you, my friend, because I would never wish that upon my worst enemy. But be supportive of us when we're talking about it. And I would also say, have empathy, have sympathy, be nice, and say it's okay. Because a lot of the times, at least I can speak for myself, I can't speak for everybody, but I just want to be told it's okay. Like, hey, you're not bad for having been a part of that. It's okay. Like just reminding them that you love them and that you're supportive. And even if these people are still actively in DV relationships, or they're actively still having like really toxic relationships with people in their lives, or being a part of these types of really toxic culty environments, just don't give up on them. Do not, of course, take care of your mental health. That is a big thing. Sometimes you have to take a step away if you need to for yourself, because you can't be taken down and drawn, from these people. They can't drain you the same way that they're draining. They're the way that the abusers are draining them. So I would highly recommend, just being supportive, and doing what you can to stay active in that person's life, because when they do finally leave, they're going to be so grateful that at least one person was there, because when you leave, you are facing some very unknown territory. I was convinced that I was going to marry Kyle, and when I left Kyle, there was a huge level of unknowns. Like, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do after this? I'll never be happy. I'll never find a partner. Like, life is nothing but this bleak black hole of I don't know what's going to happen, and the unknown is fucking scary. Similar to leaving worldwide. I had cultivated this entire community of fake people, but I went from having something to do every single day and people to talk to, hearing people's voices every day, and silence. And for somebody like me, that's hard. Okay. I don't do well with silence. I am diagnosed ADHD, and a lot of the things that I experienced as a kid to now, they all make sense, but my thoughts race. I am not a person who can sit in silence. I mean, hell, when I read books, I listen to like white noise, or I listen to the book speak to me. I don't ever just sit in silence and read a book. That shit, I can't focus, you know. But being in isolation is such a difficulty for me because I am such an extrovert and I love people. Um, so it was hard to leave. There were times, and I mention this every time, and I don't care if I sound like a broken record. There were times where I really thought like I could go back and I would be okay. Same with the abuser. There were a lot of times where I'm like, I could just talk to him. Maybe if I talk to him one more time, things will change. Of course, that wasn't the case. I'm really, really grateful that I never did after I finally left. Um, and same thing with Worldwide. Nothing would have ever changed if I would have gone back. They would have taken more of my money and manipulated me into thinking that we were besties, and like we nothing would have changed. And it's they always tell us be uncomfortable, right? And that is uncomfortable. And another thing that I can say is cutting out a parent is another world of discomfort, right? I know it's the right decision, but there was a lot of unknowns with that too. I was like, oh God, like, am I a horrible person? Am I going to be able to live my life without that parent a part of my life? Am I going to be okay? And those are things that I still to this day struggle with, if I'm being honest. But I have these people around me who remind me, like, Danny, do you remember what your life was like when you were actively involved in these relationships? Like, you can't keep doing this to yourself, and you certainly can't do it to those kids, because my kids have suffered enough as a result of these three, different situations I was a part of. And I know that in the end, it is a better decision for all of us. And I think a lot of people too, a lot of people when we were in like Worldwide, for example, and I can't speak for me, but a lot of people have even told me that they use your children to guilt trip you. They're like, oh, well, you're just failing your children if you leave. You don't really love them if you're willing to leave this organization. Like, they're really that evil and manipulative. They'll say like dark shit to get you to stay. And it doesn't seem as dark, maybe the way that they put it, because they're not blatantly saying, oh, you don't love your kids. They're saying, like, if you want to be a winner for your family, you got to build this business. You know, if you really want to be a free family and you want to give your kids the best life, you have to build this business. And it's like, do I though? Because I have a lot more freedom and time for my kids now than I ever did when I was a part of Worldwide, than I ever did with my narcissistic parent, and than I ever did when I was with the abusive partner. Now we have so much light to look forward to. And the best part about it is I have gotten to the point in my life, and everybody told me this too. Everybody said once you turn 30, you don't give a fuck. Whew, I reached that point. My oldest brother had this talk with me. He was like, fuck everybody, Daniela, fuck everybody. It's only you and your kids. That's all that matters. Like, fuck everybody else. Like, it's such a funny thing to go back and talk about. Like, my oldest brother's goated. He's amazing. And his wife is too. Love them so much. And their kids. I love all of them. But my point is that everybody said once you turn 30, you really start to not fucking care. And that's where I'm at. I don't fucking care. My life is not going to look perfect ever. Okay, it's never going to happen. But I'm really grateful that I'm not in a place where I feel like I have to put on this fake persona because I need to impress people. Right? In Worldwide, there was so much of my time spent like, oh God, like my physical appearance is horrible. Like, my dress is ugly. Oh my God, they're going to know I got it from Goodwill, even though, the club owner's wife would be like, oh, I got all of my stuff from Goodwill for a hot minute too. And then she's like showing up in her like fucking red bottom shoes and shit. Like, you really do start to think, oh my God, I have to spend money to look better, and then next thing you know, you're being this person and wanting these things you don't really want. When I joined Worldwide, what my dream was? A tiny home and a 70 Chevy truck. Okay. My dream has now since changed. Like, I don't want a tiny house anymore, but, and I want to be a homeowner. That has drastically changed. But they forced me to believe that my dream was too small. A tiny house and a Chevy truck is not going to motivate anybody, Daniela. You got to change your dreams. And that's when it was like, oh, Bugattis. Those are like $1 million fucking cars that I'll never be able to afford. It's like, sure, there are people who can afford them and like good for those people. I don't want a car like that. Okay. I'll be okay if I don't, and I'm okay with that. They really tried to create this level of FOMO that just never really stuck the way that it should have. And, I just felt like I had to be this person that I wasn't. And I love that because, if people criticize me or judge me now, I'm just like, you don't live and walk and breathe in my shoes. Like, it's okay. My kids are taken care of. My parenting style might be different from other people, and my people might not even understand our lifestyle or our parenting style. But that's because I have kids who are different than your kids, and every kid is different, anyways. I can't expect somebody else's parenting style to work for my kids, but I can't expect my parenting style to work for theirs. All I can do is be supportive, and if people aren't harming their children, their kids are fed, taken care of, loved, and they have a good life, like, okay, if your kid's allowed to watch a show that mine's not, or mine's allowed to watch a show that your kid's not, that's beside the point. It's not that serious. Okay. Same with, some things that are like, I don't drive the nicest car. I have it paid off. I don't have a car payment. That I'm happy to say. And I did that without Worldwide. Thank you, Dad. But I'm okay with a little bit of criticism from people because I don't fucking care. And I loved being able to have that phone call come in. I was worried when I got this fucking phone call. Um, Again, shout out Nandi who did who watched me take this call. I'm not going to say who it was who called me, but I thought it was an emergency. And when I got done with the call with this person, I was just like, I was mad, but I was a lot less mad than I would have been before. And I was like, I don't fucking care. What is this person adding to my life? Because I'm minding my business. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not out here slandering somebody or speaking things that are not true. Okay? I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to defame anybody, okay? Like my opinions are based on my personal opinion and personal experience, okay? I'm not here to like deliberately hurt people. I'm here to share a story. Not only am I here to share my story, I'm here to help other people share theirs. And if there's something that I can say that can relate to anybody, I feel like I've done a good job. But mostly, I love that other people say things that I resonate with. And that will always mean so much to me. And I think that's why it's so important for people to keep talking because you don't know who you're going to impact. I don't know if you guys, listeners, and anybody who's come onto my podcast, I really wish you guys knew how much I value you guys. I really want you to know every single story that I hear, every person I get to talk to, you guys make a difference. And sometimes I do get off calls and I'm like crying because I'm so fucking sad that it's such a good person went through some bullshit. Right. But then sometimes and a lot of the times I'm elated. I'm very happy. I'm like, they get it. They get me, and even if our stories are not identical, or maybe we didn't go through the same things, or maybe I curse like a fucking sailor and the other person is, more on the religious side. And it doesn't matter. The people that I've come in contact with here are incredible. And that would not have happened if I was afraid to keep talking and if I let people silence me. And I'm not going to fucking do that. So, welcome to the shit show. No, I'm really excited, you guys. I really want to try to come back and do as much as possible. But of course, it's kind of just in my own time as my situation allows. But if you guys would love to come and share your story, or you guys want to come and have a conversation with me, or whatever it is that you want to talk about, DM me on Instagram at exesandt.podcast. You guys can also email me at Dani, Dani, at exesandtpodcast.com. You guys can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that podcasts are heard. Try to catch the video version if you can when they're uploaded onto the YouTubes. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. And don't ever stop talking. I don't care who tells you to shut up. Don't.